Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to our review of the entire first season of The Mandalorian. The finale of it dropped while we foolishly decided to spend time with our loved ones, friends, and family over the holiday break.
How dare.
How dare. So we're a little late to the party, but we've been covering this thing as it's been coming out and doing recaps, so we wanted to put a bow on this and do the whole thing. I'm Joe Starr, your poor substitute for Dan Murrell today. Joining me, Eric Goldman, a wonderful substitute for an Eric Goldman.
Thank you. I like Star Wars.
I am fully expecting you to set the show on fire, and I'm very excited. Billy Business.
Happy to be here. Thank you, Joe.
Hey, and my favorite captain, who I can't talk about Star Wars without. I mean, I could, but what would the point be? Emma Fyffe.
Thank you very much
for being
for
here.
having me, and a good McClunky to everyone.
McClunky! So we're just going to get into this. We're going to hear some overall thoughts, and if you don't agree with me, you're going to get a real BK23 to the face, is what I've decided, because that is how talking about Star Wars on the internet works. And by that, I mean not shoot you. It's made of wood. I'm just going to you with it.
Is it made of wood?
It is.
Really?
Yeah,
it's made of
it's plastic.
No, it doesn't even have a trigger.
No, it doesn't. It's the safest gun I could be given. my deer hunting family decided.
You go pew pew with that.
Give Joe the space gun.
Hey, I love it. All right. Hey, guys, Mandalorian. Let's overall feeling of the show. A plus, meh, somewhere in the middle. Were you happy? Were you sad? Eric, tell us how much you hated this.
I was quite happy with Mandalorian. Overall, I thought it was definitely a huge success as far as, this is the first ever live action Star Wars show. If you think back on the history, the fact that we know that 50 scripts were written for a show we never saw.
The Underworld show.
Yeah. This was a long time coming, and I thought, by and large, it was a big success. There are, a few little things I would change about it, a few little things that I wonder if season 2, they probably have worked out some kinks, which I think is very normal for a TV show.
Sure.
Especially in its first season, a brief season. But I think as far as like a weekly TV show in the world of Star Wars, I think it was highly successful. Just like, oh yeah, I love this world. I love being immersed in it. I love walking into a bar in this world and encountering creatures. And I think it really nailed that vibe, that feeling we love from Star Wars. And I was quite happy with the adorableness of Baby Yoda, who we will discuss further.
Well said. One of you disagree with him.
I don't, though. My feelings are very, very similar to Eric's, that it really was a incredibly successful week-to-week Star Wars adventure. I mean, there were people that had issues with the fact that the episodes, some of them were not particularly serialized. They were very episodic, and I thought that actually served the show incredibly well. And in television, we're so used to, particularly with streaming shows, this pivot away from the episodic adventure story. And I think that because people were not prepared for that, they were a little like, ugh. But I think in rewatching it, people realize, oh no, this is actually really fun. If you don't change your opinion and you didn't like it, that's cool. But I just think that there is a real merit to that. And also the fact that this was a week-to-week show and how well it did as far as numbers go in the streaming world. I wonder if more streaming services will pivot towards the week-to-week because it kept it in the conversation from week to week. Yeah. It made it more of event television, a la a Game of Thrones. The production design, it was absolutely Star Wars, and it was so fun to just be in a galaxy far, far away and not be tied into this big legacy of the Force and the Skywalkers and the Palpatines, because apparently that's all Star Wars is about. But no, that certainly was not the case with the show. And also, for me, as somebody that is a fan of the animated series, a lot of stuff from there is paying off in a big way on this show, and that's really exciting.
Yes, it is.
Billy?
Yeah, I think I agree. I'm a little bit more of the around episode 4 or 5 is when I was like, I'm having fun. Where are we going with this, guys? Yeah. Gotta start moving somewhere. You don't have to leave, but you can't stay here. So I think I was like an A-, because right as I was getting to the point where I was like, I don't know if next week nothing happens, I'm gonna start to, and then it did, in a big way. I definitely think though that it's like this to me kind of proves like the Skywalker saga is the Skywalker saga, but there are other parts of Star Wars. So this actually makes me more okay with all those other stories being about the Skywalkers, because obviously there's another window into this world, and this is a great one. And yeah, overall, I really dug it. I think A- if I had to give it a letter grade.
You have to.
Okay. I don't want to get
When I
shot
run
with
the
the
show,
wooden gun.
we give letter grades. Ha! Yeah, I think there's something interesting where with this and The Witcher, because The Witcher also felt like sort of a throwback episodic show when I think had trained ourselves to expect something else. Images started coming out for The Mandalorian, images started coming out for Witcher, and I think the golden age of television, Game of Thrones, Breaking Bad, all of these shows have sort of trained us mentally for what to now expect from television. And I do think that's where a lot of frustration lied for folks with both of these, because these felt like prestige episodes of Xena Warrior Princess. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally does.
It absolutely felt like prestige Xena TV
when we were doing
in the best way.
Our week to week of this on SJU, that was something that Danielle Radford brought up, and I thought it was such a spot on point that she said, this show, The Mandalorian, made me realize how much I missed Xena Warrior Princess, and I didn't know that I was missing that, and this fills that niche for me.
Yeah.
Again, with huge budgets,
right,
and ultimately maybe taking itself a little bit more seriously, but I think that one of the real strengths of The Mandalorian is that it knows when to not take itself too seriously, and it allows Star Wars to be silly, because guys, there's a lot of silly stuff in Star Wars. Star Wars can get real weird. I was talking about Star Wars Rebels on something the other day, and like all the weird stuff with communicating with animals and the world between worlds and space whales, and I'm like, you guys, Star Wars Rebels is real weird, but it's so good.
Yeah. Well, I think definitely, sort of kicking this show off the gate with, like, you have that solid first episode, and then the Jawa chase is episode 2 is the child, right?
Yeah.
The crawler chase.
And that, I love that episode, but it was very much like, oh, wow, this is going to be like, this is just like he has this goal, this episode, that he has to achieve. He has to go get this thing, from this creature and, get it going on the sand crawler. But I loved it.
Yeah.
I thought, oh, this is really cool. This is like, it's really well done. The action's really well done, and I'm really, involved in it. Again, it's a universe. It's already obviously one that's invited us in, but I think that they're kind of nailing it. And yeah, I do think, like, overall, you look at the season, there's only 8 episodes, but I think maybe they could have had it a little better as far as back and forth. I think the middle of the season, I think the reason a lot of people, Billy, were where you were, was because there were several episodes in a row that were strictly standalone. And even though I think that was a strength of the show, the standalone, maybe they could have peppered it in. Like, maybe in the middle of the season, they probably could have used one that maybe brought back Carl Weathers,
One
or something.
Yeah, earlier.
Because I agree with you. I enjoyed those standalones because we were still learning things about the character and the world.
Yeah.
But when that moment came where he got the gang together, I was definitely like, okay, here we go. So I totally get it. Let's talk, and of course, just overall feel like I wanted to bring up Ludwig Göransson, who
the composer.
The Western plays on.
The score for this is amazing. I would be so excited every single Friday morning to drive here to do SJU and to listen to the latest episodes.
Was he specifically riffing on the Rogue One score? I think
he didn't
the
mention
Imperial
as much.
Suite sounded like it was in there a little bit.
So, but man, that main theme sure was. I was humming it all through December, basically.
And the way that he went about composing the score was, when you're scoring something, a lot of the time you'll do it digitally on a keyboard or something like that. But he was saying that he actually just started playing all the individual instruments to come up with the orchestrations for this, because he just wanted it to have that really lived in natural feel. And the score is a real standout of what's a very well composed series all in my opinion.
Billy, by the way, I heard you on a recent episode of SJU mention how, isn't it funny that the guys from Community went on to direct like Infinity War and Endgame, and just mentioning that he got his start scoring Community.
Yeah.
That was the first TV show, first anything, I think, if you look at like professionally that he did. I think he was like 25 and doing scoring Community. So
he's really young.
all roads lead back to Community is what I want to say. It's a great show.
I agree.
Which is why season 2 will open with a riff on the paintball.
Please.
Oh my God, I would like, please.
Let's talk Pedro Pascal, because I think there were.
Yes.
I don't know where necessarily where you guys fall on that. Like, is the helmet on all the time? Okay, I know a lot of people were getting frustrated and calling it like it's just like an action figure as a lead character.
Well, it's interesting because by and large, felt that character did an incredibly good job of making me care about him and know what he was feeling emotionally, even without being able to see his face. Mm-hmm. And that's a combined effort of Pedro Pascal's voice acting and also of the many stunt doubles, whoever was in the suit at the time. Yeah. One of whom is, I'm blanking on his first name. He's John Wayne's grandson, though. I'm going to look it up right now. But he did a lot of the suit work on this. Oh, yeah.
I don't think you can do something that cool.
Yeah.
Cooler than that for a space western. John Wayne's grandson.
Seriously.
Double your lead.
No,
That's
totally.
amazing.
Why am I I'm looking up his name right now because it's completely escaping me.
Billy, you talk while she does that.
So, Brendan.
It was such it was like, I remember a bunch of news sites running it as like this controversy, like he's not even the suit. And without even knowing any of this, I was like, I never thought for 1 minute that he would have been.
Yeah.
I just always assumed it was
James Earl Jones wasn't in the Vader suit.
Right. That's the thing. Like, this is not a new concept in Star Wars.
Right.
Yeah.
And when we think of the character of Darth Vader, we think of James Earl Jones. We don't necessarily immediately think of David Prowse, who was in the suit.
Mm-hmm. But who's very upset, by the way, that you don't think of him.
Right. He should be. That's the thing is that people that do this like suit acting or creature acting do not get the kind of credit that they're due, because by and large, again, it is them embodying this character that is being voiced by somebody else who's being like lauded as the person behind that character, when really it's a joint effort.
Have you ever heard like just set footage or behind the scenes footage of David Prowse?
Doing the Vader.
Oh yeah.
So funny, Commander, tear these ships apart. I need to find these droids. You're like, he's like, why did they replace me? Like, bro, come on.
He sounds like K9 from classic Doctor Who.
But yeah, in terms of it reminded me of how challenging it is for comic book artists when they're doing Star Wars comics to show emotion with Vader.
Yeah.
And it's the reason that Spider-Man, and then it's funny because the MCU kind of figured out a way to do it, but they always cheat with his eyes, and it's like showing expression that it really a piece of cloth shouldn't have, and moving, because it's like, well, otherwise you're just looking at this blank mask every time.
I was actually kind of shocked that he took the helmet off in season 1. I thought that was going to be either series finale or like way on down the road. So when it finally, I was like, they're not going to do this. There
he is.
There it is. Hey.
All right, season 1.
Was
just
also
do it.
surprised. Yeah.
I thought. I'm sorry. I was just gonna say that I thought that Star Wars has always had that sort of Western and samurai influence, but this leaned heavy into it this show. And I think, literally, he was a man with no name until the season finale. Yeah. And I thought it worked really well. Like, it's not like he's like the most engaging character ever, but I felt like we still got a lot, we still got a lot through that. And he had some really funny moments, and he had like a reactive, the fact that he got to talk, he didn't have to talk all cool. Like he talked like a guy doing a job. And I think that worked really well to make him like relatable in, some way, despite the fact that we weren't seeing his expressions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree. But also let's talk about the actual lead of the show. You guys want to talk a little Baby Yoda?
Oh my God. All right, listen.
Tell me what your heart did when you saw a Baby Yoda.
When I first saw Baby Yoda, I was like, oh my God.
Look at him waddling down there.
So cute. But episode 2, when Baby Yoda gets out and walks around, and he like peeks around the corner of the spaceship, and he tries to like force heal the Mandalorian. I was like, this is the greatest thing that has ever come out of Star Wars. And Star Wars has had so many cute things. But Baby Yoda, man, just the way that he's articulated, and the fact that this is a puppet that I could meet in real life. This is everything I've ever dreamed.
That right now is in a storage room with lifeless eyes.
I know. Give me Baby Yoda. I will protect him between seasons. And the fact that Disney was really smart to not do any merchandise production on this character before the show aired, so that truly no one knew of its existence except the people that worked on the show and the executives at Lucasfilm and Disney, I'm sure. But your general fan, your film critic, everybody didn't know about this character's existence until that first episode dropped on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
Incredible.
I love that they went puppet the full way. Have you heard the Werner Herzog story that accompanies this? It's for his day on set, where they were like, okay, now we're going to do the digital stuff for just in case we need a digital Baby Yoda. And he was like, cowards!
Yes. You're cowards.
You're all cowards. Puppets only.
Baby Yoda was such a home run. I was thinking, I understand the cynical side of it is like, oh, Disney with their cute character
stuff.
But it just worked. And I have to say, what really struck me was I have friends and family, of course, who are hardcore Star Wars fans, and they were all like, Baby Yoda. Like, my sister is a huge Star Wars fan, and we kind of I grew up really bonding with her over it, and she was texting me about, oh no, Baby Yoda, and he was in danger. But I have also friends who are very, very casual Star Wars fans who don't know the lore, and they were like in love with Baby Yoda. So it was a home run, guys. Yeah. Like they put something in it. The fact that it hit so big in pop culture, everything about the way they created this character worked.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I think most people I know suddenly felt the need to become parents for the first time when they saw.
That's why we're having a. Yeah,
and it will be.
I didn't want to be direct, but
Baby Yoda Patterson.
I do think that between this and Rise of Skywalker, it is really making us think about our favorite Star Wars characters having sex, because Palpatine, possibly Yoda. It's interesting that this is the direction Disney decided to go.
Sexual beings.
And that was one of the things in The Mandalorian in episode 6, the second episode directed by Rick Famuyiwa, which felt very John Carpenter, but The Mandalorian was the bad guy, the Michael Myers kind of shape character. They very directly reference the idea of people having sex, which is not something that's often talked about in Star Wars.
Right. Star Wars is normally not a very horny franchise.
No. There's one Dr. Aphra comic where you're like, whoa. But this was the first time on screen that I'm like,
if you read Master and Apprentice, Qui-Gon walks in with his Jedi friend, and he's like, sorry, I'll come back. You think I'm making this up, and I am not.
True.
No, because I remember even thinking in Revenge of the Sith, I guess we'd seen some bunks, but it was to see a full bed that Anakin and Padme shared. I'm like, oh, that's a first in Star Wars.
Yeah.
But even that, it wasn't hot and heavy. It was
even Lucy and Ricky didn't get a full bed together.
Right?
Yeah,
that might
crazy.
be why people were so Finn Poe heavy, just because him patting him and complimenting the jacket was probably the horniest thing up to that point.
But also the way that Oscar Isaac,
there's
gifts of Oscar Isaac.
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's okay. So I want to go through some of our supporting characters, because I think a show like this lives or dies by the supporting characters you surround it with. So I split them up in a fun way, because Emma, I think you'll agree with me. This show felt like the best game of Edge of the Empire.
Oh my God!
The Star Wars tabletop RPG.
I completely agree with you.
So I want to talk about the adventuring party. I want to talk about Carl Weathers, IG-11, Cara Dune, and Queel. So
I took a BuzzFeed quiz or something that was, which character from The Mandalorian are you? And I got Carl Weathers.
Good. Whose name is Grief, but I will never not call him
Grief Karga. And I was actually pretty happy with that. He's morally ambiguous. He dwells kind of in a gray area, but then when he finally actually comes face to face with Baby Yoda, he's like, no, we got to protect this thing at all costs.
I mean, kind of reminiscent in some ways of Lando.
Yeah.
Where it's very much starts in this he sells out Han, but it's also he's trying to protect what he thinks is doing the right thing.
Totally.
So the kind of gray moral compass, which I really thought that was cool.
And I love I think the economy of storytelling in The Mandalorian, I think, helps benefits Carl Weathers the most in this show. And his name is Carl Weathers. It's not Greek Karga. His name is Carl Weathers. I can't help it.
He can make a stew.
I love the economy of storytelling of little baby heals him. In that moment, he makes a decision. You don't have like long, drawn-out conversations where it's like, well, we got to walk to Winterfell, so let's talk about the decision we might make along this. No, it's just in that moment, he's made his decision, turns on the other mercenaries, and says like, I had to. This thing saved my life.
Yeah.
And I think that fits this sort of idea of outlaws and bounty hunters so well that I just thought that was so cool. IG-11?
IG-11 had a great introduction. That whole scene was a really fun. That was the first scene also for The Mandalorian where we got to see sort of a sense of humor for him and his interplay with IG-11 in that scene, but also that great running bit about self-destruct and whatnot. And then him coming back at the end and,
Which paid off in the end,
Yeah, it
too.
paid off in the end. The nurse droid thing, and it's funny because on one hand I understand that like some people maybe wanted Taika to sort of do more of like a bit with the character that somehow we're used to, but there was something about the way he underplayed it that I thought was perfect. I thought it was a really fun approach.
It was understated, and I cried when he died in the last episode, and it was so important to the Mandalorian's arc of coming to terms with the fact that like we're all a product of our upbringing and our programming, and people can change, and so can droids. And yeah, Taika's performance was really endearing and heartbreaking.
Okay, wait, I want to ask you, more heartbreaking, better robot in lava death, T2 or IG-11?
Oh, man! Dang, that's a Sophie's choice.
I mean, Arnold did not quietly say to nurse and protect
I know.
under his breath as he was dying.
Even though that was his understated mission.
Yes.
Dang, maybe that's why I like IG-11 so much. It's T2.
It's T2. Yeah.
A robot took care of your baby for you.
Yes, I love it.
It's like a Maury.
I really think that based on The Mandalorian, I feel like I was watching something else at the time where there was something with like protecting found children. I was like, maybe I want to adopt.
It made me really love my cats even more than I already loved them.
Bad idea. A reality show where we all just try to be vigilantes, protecting children in the country.
I think that would go well.
Yeah, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that.
You don't want to go dog the bounty hunter with me?
No, I'm not going to do that.
Fine, guys. Let's just keep, talking about shows after they air instead of, doing something crazy.
Yeah.
Cara Dune, Gina Carano, I loved this character so much.
Yeah.
It gave you, again, economy of storytelling.
That still looks like Chopper that she's next to.
I know.
That trash can? You mean the worst
Trash
droid?
can. No, the best droid after some other droids that also already exist.
I thought this was a fantastic character. You get, a look into the rebellion through this character. No one has to really look at the camera and go, there were shades of gray in the rebellion. You see it in how she acts. She's such a great, there's no opening crawl that's like, hey, Return of the Jedi has happened. Right. Not everything's great. And I think she's such a good window into that, where it's like, I'm a hero of the rebellion.
Yeah.
And now I'm on the run. The world has kind of cast me aside.
Yeah, I mean, she talks about the fact that basically they tried to incorporate them into the New Republic, and they were serving as like bodyguards to diplomats.
Right,
and she said, that's not what I signed up for.
Yeah, that's not what I do.
Yeah, and it was a really good sort of parallel with the character of Din Djarin, the Mandalorian, of kind of addressing where is my place in this world that doesn't really necessarily have a need of my skill sets, or where my skill sets have to be put to use in a more sort of nefarious way, instead of like, I'm taking down the man and fighting for the people.
Yeah.
And they did a really good job, I think, of quickly establishing her and the Mandalorian as like as bros, as like comrades in arms.
Yeah.
It's like we felt that very quickly, and that this is someone that she would connect to and want to help. And I like the little touches, like her not wanting to mother baby Yoda.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, not
And
being
also
into that.
I want to commend Gina Carano, because when she started acting, she was rough around the edges, to be sure. And it's been a few years, and it's like when I saw her in this, I hadn't seen her act in anything quite a while. I was like, oh, she's like way improved.
Totally.
Obviously, she always had the physical presence,
Yeah.
always very plausible, because we knew in real life she could kick ass. But I thought she gave a really good performance here, as far as just like exactly what you were saying. That character that's like, I've been through this war, and now there wasn't really anything left for me afterwards.
Yeah. Billy, to balance us out, say something negative about Queel.
Oh no, Queel was the one that I liked the most.
Miss you most of all, Scarecrow?
Yeah, I Ugnaughts are just such like a Star Wars thing where it's in Empire Strikes Back, you're like, why not just have a little pig looking thing and it doesn't mean anything. So I thought immediately, that's when I think that's what when Queel came out in that first episode, I was like, okay, this is what this is going to be. It's like, what if you were 8 years old and you went to Walmart and Luke Skywalker sold out, but your mom bought you an Ugnaught, and that's all you had to play with,
and you had to come up with something.
And that's when I was like, okay, I kind of dig what this series is doing. I loved the kind of the I have spoken, like I think that was like a fun little thing to put on him. I loved kind of
it's such a simple addition to like the species and the lore.
Right. Yeah. It's just a very I'm not gonna say subtle, but it is like, it tells you a lot about that whole species without even really like the language quirks and everything. I loved how altruistic he was, like sometimes you're waiting for characters to kind of like, is Carl Weathers gonna turn? I kept thinking he was gonna turn in that last episode, but I love that this character was just like, I'm just a good dude, I'll help you if I can help you.
I don't want to be paid.
I don't want any pay.
I just want my land to be safe again, so I can live here with my blurs.
Like, I had this whole like headcanon. I was like, oh, I bet you he's seen some shit. Like, I bet you he did some stuff, and now it's just trying.
Because we've mostly not really seen Ugnaughts out on their own, because it's like on Cloud City they were minors basically,
Right.
and then
Playing football,
and they were
with
kind of
Rico's
mean.
head.
Yeah, exactly. And they were, and then also in Rebels and Clone Wars, we see them as like crewmen for Hondo Ohnaka, but this was the first
But
time.
they're kind of like a Minions bit.
Yeah, Minions bit, and it was really cool to see one with a lot of autonomy.
Yeah.
And I got a very emotional, a little weepy at the end of episode 7. I was like, oh no! And then even like with
He was trying so hard.
his little skull cap and Mandalorian foot, I was like, come on,
Yeah.
touch me.
Let's talk bad guys a little bit, because there's some great scum and villainy in the show. Werner Herzog as the client. Hey, it's just such weird casting.
It's so surreal to still say Werner Herzog is a part of Star Wars.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
very strange, and I love it.
Super fun. I'm just going to sort of read through everybody, and we can just talk about all of them, because we have other things to do, and I think we've been talking for 4 hours. I just really like talking about this show. Giancarlo Esposito as Moff Gideon, of course, is sort of the big bad that emerged at the end and sort of gave some shape to what the next season's going to be. Bill Burr's Mayfeld, Space Boston.
Oh, Space Boston.
Fennec Shan, Ming Na, who
She was
I'm assuming is going to be something very big.
Yeah,
next
I
season.
don't think that she's dead. I also think she was truly the standout of that episode. For me, that was the weakest episode, was episode 5.
agree.
Largely because Bobby Cannavale's kid. Good thing Bobby Cannavale's your dad. Not a great actor. Oof, that's
Funny, I really liked that episode.
interesting.
A lot.
I didn't dislike it. It was just my least favorite.
No, I was really into it. And did they ever really like answer who that was?
No, because people assume it's Moff Gideon just because of the cape.
Right.
We don't know.
But we don't know. And also, did Moff Gideon have spurs on his boots?
Yeah.
I don't think so. But anyhow, but yeah, she was such a standout in that episode. And I was sort of like, oh, this tonally is where I feel everyone in this episode should have been. That one for me, more it felt like everyone was on a different show, and I wanted everyone to be on the show that Ming-Na Wen was on, because she was great. Her whole thing of trying of kind of playing both sides and getting Bobby Cannavale, I can't remember the character's name, to kind of join up with her. It was great. She was magnificent. I really hope she comes back.
Same here.
Yeah, I agree. That was probably the only one that was like kind of out of balance. Where like I liked Amy Sedaris's Pelemato.
Sure, me too.
Just maybe not in that episode.
Yeah.
Maybe you throw her in that village or something like that. She fits
Right,
a
in the
little
Bryce
better.
Dallas Howard village.
Yeah.
Although I did, it's funny because then at the same time I did. That was, I think, a lot of people split on that episode about going to
Sounds
tattoo.
like an apartment complex. I'm sorry.
Dallas
Where do you live?
Howard
Out at the Bryce Dallas Howard Village on La Cienega.
The Bryce Dallas Howard Arms.
One thing I defended on that episode that some people were critical of is like, Tatooine. They had to go to Tatooine.
No.
But I really liked that look at like, what is Tatooine now? And
Yes.
it's like,
Yes.
and I thought that was really interesting.
And I will
you know?
stand by you on that 110% because we've seen in Star Wars, and I'm saying this is somebody that overall I enjoyed Solo, but Solo winked at the camera a lot.
Yeah.
They went back to Tatooine and did not wink at the camera once. They were just on Tatooine, and that's where we were.
Yeah.
It was
no.
great.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool, actually.
And managed and took just different angles looking at everything.
Yeah.
The stuff with the sand people was
and,
really cool.
the stuff with the sand people was incredible of reframing it of, no, we're the outsiders. The sand people
Yeah.
were here first.
And then we have sort of the evil gunslinger crew led by Bill Burr. That was on The Prisoner, Chapter 6. A lot of people didn't like Space Boston. I'm real fine with it. I don't know.
There's always been accents all over the board in Star Wars and
Yeah.
pronunciations all over the board.
I know English feels like Star Wars to a lot of people, but I'm fine with other accents. There's a lot of bad cultural reasons why British is a default for for everything, and I'm fine with a little Boston.
Have any of you listened to the Dooku Jedi Lost audio?
Oh, the
play?
audiobook.
No.
There's a
Tell me about this.
Dooku's first Padawan, Rael Everos, has a very southern accent. So to hear it be like, well, I got to go to the Jedi Temple for some training. Count Dooku was like, oh, we could just do anything now. So
Great.
if you like Boston Star Wars, check out Dooku Jedi Lost for some cowboy Jedi.
From my point of view, the Jedi are evil.
It seriously is like, well, Master Yoda says we got to be mindful of the future. I was like,
But it's true. Like we glean to expect either sort of the flat American accent or the British accent for bad guys. But I think I told this exact story when we talked about this episode. But I always remember George Lucas, Pernell August, who played Shmi, said that when she was doing Phantom Menace, she said, "Should I be doing my regular Swedish accent or should I change it?" He's like, "No, it's fine. You're from the Swedish part of the galaxy." And it's that's the answer to everything. It's there's a southern part, there's a Boston part of the galaxy, and it's okay.
And anytime someone's like, "Does that fit?" I always I think I go back to this quote for many reasons, but when Donald Glover was talking about pansexual Lando, and he was like, "There's so many things in the galaxy that you'd be attracted to all of them." There's so many accents in the galaxy. There have to be. There absolutely have to be. But I thought Burr was great. Giancarlo Esposito, man. That was such brilliant casting because just casting him gives
presence.
Presence. You already know so many things that you need to know about this Moff Gideon guy.
My only wish was that maybe they would have seeded the threat of Gideon maybe a little bit more.
Okay.
And that's where I think the middle of the season could have maybe used that.
Exactly.
I don't disagree with that statement at all, but I did really like his introduction.
Same.
I love that they brought in Death Troopers because they do such a good job of using them sparingly that I get so excited whenever they show up.
Yeah.
And Moff Gideon, man, I want to know everything about him.
And he had a TIE fighter that had a cool landing sequence we hadn't seen before.
Yep.
And they also showed how he actually survived a crashing TIE fighter, unlike some movies that might be in theaters right now.
And hey, Emma, the Darksaber.
I know. Dang. How did he get it? I want to know.
Bo-Katan, are you okay?
I know.
What's going on?
Yeah. Well, it does raise some interesting questions about what the relationship between what we saw go down in Star Wars Rebels to where we are now as far as the Mandalorians go is concerned. Because again, we know from Rebels and other supplemental materials that and we'll find out more, I think, about how it all kind of went down in the continuation of Clone Wars in February, which I'm so looking forward to. But we know that things were looking kind of okay for the Mandalorians at the end of Rebels because they kind of pushed out the Imperial occupation, but we know that there previously had been an Imperial occupation. So then it's like, okay, we know that little baby Din Djarin, the Mandalorian, was saved by what appear to be kind of remnants of Death Watch, who were the Mandalorians that are like, nah, we're still going to be fighters, even though the other Mandalorians are like, we're going to chill and not do that anymore. So, yeah, there's a lot of questions about what happened because the last person we knew to have the Darksaber was Bo-Katan, and she was in a position where she was kind of unifying Mandalore, and it looked like they were going to come back strong and also possibly assist in the rebellion in some way. So, I'm so excited, you guys. I can't freaking wait.
Answers. There was the thing that hit me hard about that image is sort of again going back to the idea of the Empire as a play on Nazis and the idea of Germany like stealing art and artifacts and culture.
I mean, they address that so much in Rebels with Thrawn. Like that's exactly what Thrawn does. He steals like people's artifacts and culture and has a weird museum on his ship. It's
and I just love the idea of now this Moff Gideon being like, well, now we're out on our own, but I still got this sword that I looted. Like, it's just such an evil, kind of cool, conniving thing.
I was in movies. I understand it's like one of those things where as a fan of the animated series, of course, I'm always like, it'd be so cool if they had this character show up. But I also understand like if Ahsoka Tano walked into Last Jedi, it's like the amount of backstory you'd have to explain to so many people who didn't watch those series is too much. But I think with
would have had to have fit a third episode into a single movie.
Yes.
With this.
I'm not gonna engage.
I'm on Billy's side, but with this,
I've
this
fought
show,
off trolls for 2 weeks now.
Same here. I'm with you, Team Rise. Anyway, but with this show, Filoni's direct involvement, I think there's much more room for this to happen, to like have this direct continuation, and it doesn't have to go like super deep dive, but there can be some. And I do wonder, will we finally get an actual, live action depiction of a character? I was like, could Katie Sackhoff show up? You'd have to age her up, but I guess I feel like for the first time there's room for that to maybe happen here.
As long as it's not like Iron Man 2 where they're like, what about this? And it was Captain America's shield. They're like, yeah, that's great. And then they just use it to like prop something up and that's the end of it. Like hopefully this actually means something.
The fact that it's important to the Mandalorian culture though, I think it has to be.
And I think that there is a way, and I truly believe that they will do it in the show of addressing that like a lot of the stuff that we know from Clone Wars Rebels without, having tons and tons of exposition. I feel that the Darksaber was introduced to this in such a way that people who don't know what it is were like, oh, cool, I wonder what that thing is, instead of feeling alienated, like, what the heck is that? You know what I mean?
No, I legit did see a lot of people who didn't watch those series just going, what's that cool lightsaber?
Yeah.
And some of them were like going down the wrong road, saying like, oh, does that mean he's a Sith or something? But that's okay. They'll get their answers in a year,
Well, and this is not like Darth Maul showing up in Solo.
Yeah.
If only their streaming service had access to find out where these things were.
Disney, right before this episode aired, had put out something on their YouTube channel that was a compilation about the history of the Darksaber.
Maybe they should stop kicking after every episode to Empire Strikes Back and kick to Clone Wars, kick to Rebels.
I'm like, I guess it's because Boba Fett was introduced in Empire, but I thought that was so funny.
I mean, what if, they just kicked to Wikipedia, handily accessible on the Fandom app?
That's a great resource for Star Wars fans. I think they should go there right now.
I spend a lot of time on weird.
Okay, so let's get a standout episode for you, and then we'll get out of here. Fyffe.
I'm gonna say episode 3, which was the first episode directed by Deborah Chow, where we first got to see all the Mandalorians expose themselves with their jetpacks and come to the aid of our main character Mandalorian Din Djarin to help him escape with the baby.
I as that was happening, I just looked at my wife and was like, Emma just crapped her pants.
I was so excited.
I can smell it from here.
I was in the St. Peter. I was at the El Capitan with her, and unfortunately, guys,
it was rough, but it happened. But it happened.
True, Eric and I didn't see that.
Eric, what made you crap?
Part of me wants to say the finale for just bringing out all the characters came together in the penultimate one, but just really seeing everything that happened in the finale, seeing the Darksaber, just a lot of great stuff there. But I think I might also say episode 3, just as far as like I was really already digging the show in those first 2, but just that one really going big, delivering, really sort of being thrilled, like really digging the episode to the point that I'm like, I'm so excited that this director is doing the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. So I felt like that was just like, we already...
You couldn't do a better commercial for this.
No, you really couldn't.
Yeah, just feeling like, wow, this is just in really good hands from Favreau to Filoni to Deborah Chow. Just like, these people are the right people to be guiding this part of Star Wars.
Yeah. I'm going to go, Sanctuary, I think was Bryce Dallas Howard's episode. It was, in terms of the lone wolf and cub Western tropiness of this thing, those were some of my favorite tropes. Like, comes to new town and the lady's like, I can fix you with my love. And like having to train the town to protect themselves. Like, I love all of that. The repurposed AT-AT Walker was so cool.
It was great.
And also just as a show that to me...
ATST.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
I'm so sorry.
It was an Yeah, an AT-AT, man.
I like that's now how you use a gun.
This gun.
Just bonk yourself on the head.
I don't believe in shooting them.
Gift that, people.
I don't. No, I just in a show that to me often felt like a Willow series in the best way. Also, having Bryce Dallas Howard directing that episode felt really, really cool, and I want to see her direct more things now.
You should read my interview with her on Fandom.com where she talks about working, seeing Willow on set when she was growing up.
I hope everyone will enjoy me in doing that. And then, Julia Jones as Omera. That was a great standout.
And I feel
character.
like she's got to come back.
100%.
I want to know all about her and why she was as good of a sharpshooter as she was.
Again, economy of storytelling. Like you learn everything you need to know about this lady's past by being smart enough to hide under the basket with her kid, and then that one sequence.
She knows
so cool.
what's up.
Billy.
I think my favorite, and I don't mean as like a diminishing returns, but I think the pilot was just so incredible. Just, at the first few minutes, I was like, okay, cool, where are we going with this? But still, I think my favorite sequence in the whole show is him looking around the ship, trying to find something he can maybe, mutiny or take over and escape, and then just seeing the rows of carbon frozen people. And just actually like seeing what it looks like when someone's carbon frozen, because last time it just went under the thing, we didn't see it. Seeing IG-11 move in a way that I never imagined IG-88 could do.
IG-88 couldn't. Literally screwed into the ground, basically.
But also just like having the that pilot does such a good job of keeping one foot firmly in Star Wars while taking somehow a giant leap with their other foot. It's so cool to see that world when the Empire's recently fallen and those stormtroopers looking kind of dirty and they're the outcasts this time. There aren't stormtroopers clean on every corner. So I think the pilot just is such a great table setter, and pilots are really hard to do.
The pilot was great. I think by and large, like, that is one of the real strengths of this series is really giving you a glimpse into, hey, here's what the world is like, and here's how people are living nowadays. It's the one argument I have, and as much as people like to rag on the Canto Bight stuff in Last Jedi, that gives you such an insight as to like how the upper echelons are living in a really dark and disturbing kind of way. And with this, it's like, hey, here's the ordinary people, and Werner Herzog's line about is the world more peaceful since the revolution?
I mean, honestly, as much as I love all 3 movies in the sequel trilogy, like Force Awakens is way up my Star Wars list. It's the one thing missing from the sequel trilogy is the state of the galaxy. And Mandalorian did such a good job of right off the bat kind of telling us like, those fireworks that we all love at the end of the Return of Jedi, that was like one day, and then the next day it was not.
Next day you gotta fix the galaxy. Is there anything that you guys want? And then we'll get out. Anything you guys want to see in season 2? Anything you want, whether it's a character or an idea or a creator or whatever. I'll start so I don't set you guys up with dead air because I'm a bad host. I don't want season 2 to lurch forward and start outrunning itself now that its lore is established and now that the larger goal and picture is there. I really do want out of season 2, and I think you can tweak it a little bit, like we said, an anchor in the middle, or even peppering in a little bit, even in standalone episodes. But I want more of that out of season 2. I want this amazing group of creators to continue to trust themselves and to take their time. With the stories they're telling. Yeah,
I think that the thing that's so great about The Mandalorian and what's also so great about Star Wars 1977 is it's a very simple story. This is a very simple story. It's a lone wolf and cub story. It's I found this asset. I myself am a foundling. I feel this emotional attachment to this thing, and I need to protect this baby at all costs. And I think that just continuing to lean into that and obviously bringing in some of the complications that we know. So it's like, obviously, we got in this season that something real bad went down, the Great Purge with the Mandalorians, and Moff Gideon was clearly somehow involved in it. So just continuing to explore those threads that have been set up and keep that simple storyline through, just peppering in the more complicated big picture kind of stuff, but doing those individual adventure episodes.
Yeah, we've got this overall, clearly we have this overall goal now, which is to find his species, which is both a goal for the character and it's something exciting for fans because we don't know the secrets of Yoda's species. But I don't need next season's 2 more episodes, but I don't need 10 episodes of important information every episode.
Listen.
I think that, like you said, Joe, they should stick to, going back and forth, and maybe they'll figure out a little better rhythm to it, but it should be a couple episodes of he has to take a job to make some money or meet some characters, and then we get an important new fact on the way to find the species.
I don't want every single episode of the next season to be about finding a map.
Right. No more map
I'm so tired of maps.
Maps?
All maps.
I love maps. I think for me, the most rewarding thing about The Mandalorian is kind of what I said about Queel, which is take something incredibly esoteric from the Star Wars that we know and love and give some context to it. Are you telling me that every single Jawa ever born immediately gets on a sandcrawler and is a scavenger? There's got to be more to a Jawa, or I think they are going to do this, but it's are you telling me every single Gamorrean that is born is a Gamorrean guard and works
in a Jabba palace?
Take those images I know. Put a new face on it and then let me recontextualize in a fun way some of the stuff that I already know. And I hope, as much as as cool as it is that we're gonna get more lore and all that stuff, I think if that's kind of at the heart of it, is always pretending you are the kid that went to Walmart and they are sold out of Han.
I think that's such a good way of putting it.
Then I think the show's gonna be all right.
It's the best when it's just playing with your Star Wars action figures. And as you were talking about that, I realized I really want to see Ewoks on this show because they weren't used enough in Rise of Skywalker.
And that's where we'll end the show. Hey guys, thanks for hanging out. Thanks for watching. Let us know what you thought about The Mandalorian. Let us know what your favorite episodes, your favorite supporting characters were below. Thank you guys, and we'll see you next time, where we'll probably also talk about Star Wars more. Bye.
Bam.